Whoa. Hello? What's your mute this? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm here. I'm just trying to turn this. Okay. Hey. Did it. Morning. What had on today? I'm gonna buy a fishing boat, retire. That's me fishing. So Kylie, Taylor, Ashanti, the other me, Richard, Blake, Alex. So I see on screen right now. Well, I see your names. Any of you have any questions or needs or whatever?
No.
I was incidentally in the area of somebody who later told me that they were that he, she, or they were that had positive, because that person had been around somebody else over the weekend who was positive, and that person kept testing, coming up negative, and just between you and me and my wife and several others, it seems kind of irresponsible to have gone around other people when you know you were exposed, but that's what happened. So wish me luck. Hope I don't turn positive. Sounds like I'm going to turn into a vampire or a zombie. I hope I don't turn. Especially since I didn't know, so I went around my little grandbaby yesterday. I'm just waiting to see if anybody else is going to pop in before we get started. It's a very basic transitional class today, as well, Tuesday's class would have been. So we're transitioning to SA3, final one, final big thing besides the final. The process will be basically the same as every other essay. We introduce it, we talk about possibilities. The only difference is we can't talk about content too much because everybody's going to have different contents. Now you can ask questions about it in class, and that may be helpful to each other to hear whatever my answers are. I don't pretend to have a lot of answers because everybody's going to be doing various different things. So there might not be one, solid answer to any question, but there are possibilities. And, if you and I agree on something, whether it's a formatting issue or whatever, and I agree to it, then whether it's right or wrong, we're okay. That's pretty much the way it always works with in academia. As long as your professor okays it, then it's good to go kind of thing. Doesn't mean it'll be okay next time or in some other circumstance. So that's basically the process. I'll ask you to propose your topic, just like I did for the other two essays. And a reference page where you just display for me your ability to coordinate your sources onto a reference page, which I already have practice with. We'll just work on getting it as finely tuned as possible for the last submission. So I'm going to go away and share screen to look at the top. Is it open? My monitor over here, big monitor. Watching you in case you're trying to sneak away. Finishers. So here we are. These are our final weeks, 12 through 15. I think week 16 might be the final exam or the final day, and then it goes into final exams. I'm not really quite sure. And somebody in one of the classes, let me think, who was it? It was a different class, but they asked me that person asked me if I knew when the final exam was, and I don't. There's a final exam schedule. I'm sure you can look at the homepage and search for it to know the precise time that our final exam will be scheduled for. But just like for the midterm, it'll be for that whole day for us because it'll be on campus like the midterm was. So whatever day time that is appointed, just consider the whole day to be final exam day. Here's the research paper basic prompt. It's the basic prompt plus all the additions that I put onto it. This is the basic stuff right here that you'll see when I open this document. Essentially, here we are. We're moving from a literary analysis, which focused specifically on literature, short stories in our case. And then we moved on to a cultural analysis, which you have submitted now, and I get to read and comment on. And now we're moving on to the big paper, 1,600 words. These are not my maximums, but it's just a nice round number. Students often ask, can I go beyond that? Yes, you can go beyond. You just can't go under the minimum because it's a development issue. Now, if you go over and it's just excess, then that'll be my comment. It's like you're too wordy, whatever. But usually it doesn't matter. And you are presenting a position about a global problem situation, concepts that extend outside of America. The same thing I've been stressing for the others, except now you can include America in your discussion because the concepts become global, right? It's not just about America. It's a bigger issue, whatever that issue would be. It could be, any kind of, power, privilege, control over others, things that we saw in the short stories and the things that we talked about in relation to cultural identities and stuff like that. So if you feel that the things that you wrote about for your cultural analysis can be continued relating to, those global issues, like sexism or something like that, that's a fair route for you to take. It's not a necessary route unless you chose to write a shorter essay or the second essay, the 500-word one. Everybody understand that now, even if whatever the issue is, you don't want to focus on America, but you can use America as a your kind of narrative, what do you call it, the axis or whatever, right? The thing that kind of holds it all together, because that's what you're familiar with. And if you look at the global initiative comments on the syllabus or on the signs that you see in the hallways, it says that our aim is to make students kind of aware of their own being, their own cultures and all in relation to, down here, this stuff, the world today. Rhetorical situation, remember, rhetorical situation has to do with identifying yourself among some audience. So we are writing an academic paper and you're pretending to be addressing several other academicians, other students and professors. Where does it say that? Right here. From all over, it's focusing it on the A&M system. I mean, it could be just focused on Prairie View, or it could be focused on just universities. It could be a conference that you're delivering in Wyoming or something, because it's pretty much all the same kinds of people. High achieving students and professors. Your audience is intelligent. Hey, I don't know about all that. Well-read and interested in world affairs. We went over the length, APA guidelines. I'm gonna, I've posted several kinds of samples for you all to use. And as I've said on several occasions, use it as a model. And one thing that I didn't show you, and I showed one of your classmates, I've shown that to, anyway, I've shown it to somebody the other day. If you go to the Purdue OWL main page, which I have linked, there's a box that you can drop your URL or your information in, and it will help you create your reference page. Then you can copy and paste it onto your own paper. We'll look at that later. 5 sources. And that sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when you consider that you're turning in what 5.5 pages to however long, 8 or so. And the sources we're going to talk about have to be credible and reliable, and that's what kind of goes along with this academic scholarly. So they have to basically come from the university or a .edu place. It doesn't have to be Prairie View's databases, but it should have a direct connection to academia, which is what we are, colleges. That doesn't mean they were always originally published by a school. It just means the school has them in their resources or whatever. Fancy word, repository. They have them in their databases or whatever. So if in doubt, ask Mr. Schmidt, is this a good scholarly source? If all you do is include Wikipedia and things like that, you're not going to be satisfying the academic scholarly aspect of it. It doesn't have to be long and boring and hard. It just has to be found on a site like ours. Now, in some cases, .govs will count as academic scholarly, even though, listen to me carefully, even though they technically aren't. If you ask me and I look at it, I go, well, yeah, it's kind of this like it, because it's credible and reliable. Now we know the government might lie to us, but most of the time when you go to a .gov, you're finding like statistics and data like that. .orgs are not academic scholarly, but a lot of times they are credible and reliable. Credibility has to do with what they're saying and who they are saying it. So, you assume that because they have some experience or knowledge or education about the subject matter, that they're credible, and that whatever they say, you can rely on being mostly true. So if you found a site that was, just hating on women and talking about enslaving women, well, that wouldn't be very reliable information because they don't sound very credible, right? Credibility is often questioned by the extreme nature of something. Somebody suggesting something extreme or crazy or too controversial is probably not credible. Now remember, credible and reliable are different from academic and scholarly. Academic and scholarly are what we find in the university type systems. Doesn't mean you can't find good, solid sources. The 3 of your sources have to be academic and scholarly. The other 2 can be anything that's credible and reliable. And a lot of times Wikipedia is credible and reliable. You have to sort of look at what it's saying to make sure it's not, written by some 12-year-old crazy kid or something. And this is just the basics of dynamics. And I'm going to stop the share for a second. Slow me down if you need me to clarify anything. This is just the introduction to the assignment. And remember, we'll be doing the second half of the group assignment. It'll probably be pretty much the same, where you just get with somebody and you talk about, they tell you what they wrote, and you talk about it to us, assuming that we're in class by then. Or we'll do it here on Zoom if we have to. So I'm waiting for the document. Any questions about anything? Pretty straightforward, I hope, so far. More of the same, just more of the same, like literally. Yeah. Oh, I could have showing that. Sorry. So here's the same information. This is if you open that document, it'll open in a new on a new page, on the web, but it can also, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see that I have it opened as the Word document. I don't know what happened to my perm. This is off over here, there. Get rid of. Oh, turn this. Okay. This is wrong. PVAM, and there should be a U there. You know that. All right. Stuff we just covered. This is the repeat of paper structure. Same thing I emphasized on the checklist for the cultural analysis paper. Style and tone, that goes hand in hand with that credibility, reliability. Remember ethos, pathos, and logos? Ethos is when you establish that you are credible as a spokesperson for whatever your topic is. And how do you do that? Well, you make sure your sources, the people that you're having a conversation with. That's basically what a source is. Kind of having a pretend conversation with credible people. The academic, scholarly means that they're credible, reliable. But if it's not academic, scholarly, you assume that you're looking for credible and reliable people or persons or whatever. So you're having this pretend conversation, and if you're having a reasonable conversation with other reasonably intelligent people, then the ethos becomes connected to your audience feels, hey, I can trust this person, right? Ethos being kind of a conduit, like a pathway to gaining trust. And then pathos, remember, is the use of emotions or our common human feelings about things. Just be careful, don't use that too much, but use it a little bit. And of course, logic plays a big role in establishing argument, and it helps with your credibility. When you make good logical sense through using good style and tone, even if you're wrong, or there's no such thing as wrong, even if you're not, controversial topics are weird because you can never really prove a point. You can establish, because that's what makes it controversial, right? If there was a straight answer, we wouldn't have to argue about it. But when you're arguing, you're trying to just move your reader a little bit to seeing the world the way you see it. You always kind of assume that your audience is right in the middle. They're not quite sure how to feel about whatever the topic. You don't want to preach to the converted kind of thing, right? This down here is a summary, a bulleted version of everything that was above. We're on a global topic, must be in APA format, 1,600 words or more, 5 sources or more, essay structure. And this is just a grade, a loose grade breakdown. And then I put some topic possibilities here. Obviously, if you've been thinking about this, or if you want to continue with the issues that you started, I can't highlight it here. In essay 2, there you go. Continue with that. Worldwide environmental concerns. That could be so many different things. It could be like, protecting the oceans, or, conserving resources, or it could have to do with, the greenhouse effect and global warming and those kinds of things. If you're interested, then you can pursue that. This one is very topical. There's that's highlight. If you remember way back when we were talking about things, I might have mentioned the word kairos, Kairos. It's a Greek word, but it basically it comes from some myth, but has to do with being in the right place at the right time to cover a topic, right? So topical right now because of the Ukraine and Russia, stuff going on. How should the world ever unite to confront, um, maybe bad leaders? Doesn't have to be a tyrant, doesn't have to be a dictator, but somebody who's kind of causing trouble for the whole world. Um, especially in a dicey situation like that when, Russia's got big bombs and we have big bombs. So we can't just go bullying them and tell them to get out because they could always, shoot their bombs over at us, and we don't want that. So it is a kind of a gray territory to enter into. It's not either or. Any kind of healthcare issues that you're interested in, if you're going into healthcare, it might be a good thing. If you plan to be a doctor or a nurse, that might be something to explore. It's a wide open range because, that could include, how to deal with insurance, how to have universal health care. I forget the technical name of Obamacare is, whatever it is, its effectiveness, what are our options, what are people around the world doing, because there are a lot of countries that seem to do it better than we do, dealing with our sick people and the cost, right? Going back to pathos, you throw in the mix of dying children or dying old people, and you help enhance. I'm not saying you should exploit them, but you help enhance your discussion. Likewise, any of the kind of social issues that people are in poverty, or they don't have good resources, medical resources, whatever it would be. Issues in education. Well, here again, there are a lot of countries out there that seem to be able to do it a lot better than we do it. So you try to explore why. What are they doing that maybe we should do, or is it even possible for us to do because of our overall capitalistic system? Some of you already kind of touched upon this. Dependency is a strong word. So if you want to look at how much we rely, this was a big issue like for Y2K. Well, weren't even born, or you just born. But everybody feared that when the clocks rolled over to 2000, that all the computers in the world would freak out and we would all just shut down. It didn't happen. But there is this fear that the more technological we become, the more dependent we become on those technologies. And if anything happens, then we're kind of up that old creek without a paddle. Schitt's Creek, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Other countries deal with guns and gun control in comparison. We always complain. We always know we've got too many weapons out on the streets and all. Well, you look at what other countries are doing. How does like Great Britain? They don't have guns out on their streets like we do, and the police don't carry guns. How does that work for them? I don't really know. You'd have to do the research. I'm sure America is not the only place that has problems with illegal guns. Problem with guns, though, and I'm not trying to politicize this. The problem is a lot of times when people go on like shooting sprees and all that craziness, it's with legal guns that were bought legally. So it's a conundrum, the riddle we can't solve, and that's what conundrum is. The ways that religions affect society. The more orthodox or the more extreme a religion is, obviously the more impact it would have on its surrounding society, whether it's government or a whole country. There are some countries that are what do you call them? Somebody help me. What's it called when you're run by religious people? Damn, I can't word. It's an archy word. Oligarchy, no. Anyway, like Iran, say Iran. So those are extreme versions, but you know, in America, we got Christianity as our primary mover of full ideas and stuff. So even though we like to separate church and state, it still has a strong influence, not just with us, but that kind of thing. And sexuality inequalities. By sexuality inequalities, I mean it could be male, female. It could be, you know, biases and prejudice and discrimination against people of other persuasions. Prohibited topics. This is the part to pay attention to, because this will get you a 0 on your topic proposal, right? Because I'm trying to keep you from doing this. So don't do it. You know, if you don't want to get that 0. Capital punishment or to the death penalty is a no-no. Gun control as an American issue only is a no-no. And abortion is a definite no-no. There are reasons why I forbid these. One, I've already studied this one so much that I'm pretty sure my way of looking at it is right, because I've gone in and out of the topic myself, and so if you happen to write from the other angle, I would be biased against it. And this one is just, well, obviously it's America only, but it's also just, I don't know, been done to death, pardon the pun. And abortion is too controversial. In other words, there's no winning that discussion, because you remember when we have a piece of logic, like for deductive reasoning, you have an idea and then a subordinate idea and then a conclusion you make from those two ideas. That's what deduction is. So, you know, all dogs eat meat. Well, that would be not quite valid, because maybe there are dogs that don't eat meat, but all dogs are canines. Fido is a dog, therefore Fido is a canine. So it's like an equation that you reach a conclusion that makes sense. In abortion, we can't agree on the first thing when life begins. If we agreed on that, then it wouldn't be a controversial issue. So if you can't agree on the first thing in the equation, there's no way to make a discussion out of it. That's why we'll save that one for, you know, people on corners with protest signs. So there you go. There's our initial topic. I mean, our initial presentation of topic 3, or not topic 3, but topics for essay 3. And then we shift for a grammar review. I'll come back to that in a second. I found what I really wanted to do here is introduce you to the 4+ major errors that are made that really can eliminate the effectiveness of good communication. None of these applies really much. Well, I guess subject verb would, but a lot of them don't apply when we talk about the way we talk, the way we verbalize through actual, you know, oral communication. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're giving a presentation or if you're in an interview or whatever, you want to mind your grammar and you know, diction and all those kinds of things. So situation has a lot to do with it. Mostly, I'm concerned with, you know, writing and what you write. So 4 major errors are listed first here. A run-on sentence. A run-on sentence technically is the bigger term, and so on here we should have comma splice and fused sentence. A fused sentence is like, well, a fused sentence would be this. We got two sentences and no punctuation in between. Rachel is very smart. She began reading when she was 3 years old. So a run-on can be broken down into comma splice or fused. So this is fused, and then you say, well, how do I fix it? Hey, well, let's put a comma there. No, now you have a comma splice. Comma splice, bad. Fused sentence, bad, because it's not the correct punctuation between two sentences. Sentences are technically called independent clauses. Well, I mean, independent clauses is what a sentence is. A clause is subject, verb, and an idea. And so if you have two of those that are complete, in this case, then you have a run-on sentence, which in this case is a comma. If I get that run-on, it kind of splinters down into two types. Now, sometimes teachers will call run-on sentences run-on because they run on and on and on, even though they might be grammatically correct. So that teacher and I would have a problem with the definition of run-on, but I understand it. I might comment, hey, this sentence runs on too long, break it into smaller parts as advice, but it wouldn't be technically wrong. Obviously, the ways to fix run-ons to put a period. It's not the best. Oh, I didn't mean that. How do I undo on here? I didn't mean to italicize it. Sorry, but we'll leave it. Put a period between the two. Put a semicolon. Semicolon acts the same way as a period, except you don't capitalize the next letter. Did I see that? By the way, this is not meant to be like a comprehensive grammar lesson. It's just introducing you to the major errors, the major flaws that can demolish good communication. And so that if you do these things and somebody points it out, like me, you'll have an understanding of what the whole issue is. In this case, we're joining it with a coordinating conjunction, a joining word. I wouldn't use for ever. I would eliminate that. That's this example. It is correct, but it's not really how we talk, and it's not how we really write very much, unless we're like stuffy old British people. Rachel is very smart, for she began reading. We would just put this right here, because. Comma for means the same thing as because. Remember the because it will become important when we talk about fragments. This is good. I've joined two ideas together by using this word because. It's a joiner. If I put a period here and capitalize this letter, now I have a fragment. Bad thing. It's the opposite sort of not really the opposite, the other side of run-on. Run-on says you have too much happening in a sentence. Fragments, or when you don't have enough happening in a sentence. You can put a transitional word, unless you're really good with grammar, I would be careful with this. I mean, it's doable, and you might want to practice it later as you become more sophisticated writers. For the most part, there are a lot of writers who say avoid semicolons. They're not necessary because we can always use this, or we can use this. Or we can put a period here and start the sentence with as a result. That's what run-ons are. They're joining two ideas with nothing or a comma. Two complete ideas. So I'm gonna skip number two. Number two is probably the most important one. Because if you say the day is coming later, were to write something like that, it announces sort of inarticulateness and a lack of learning. So we'll come back to that. Sentence fragments. Like I said, a sentence has a subject, a thing that does something, and whatever it does, and it's a completed idea. If you write a sentence Anybody wondering what I'm going to say? That's what a fragment is. You know, when you show up late for class, yeah, it's an incompleted idea, right? So like I said, when you use words like because as the beginning of a sentence, it's like, because she began reading when she was 3 years old, you'd be wondering, well, what? In this case, it follows the idea. So the problem is your reader may be able to make sense of it, but maybe not, because he or she won't know whether it's supposed to, if you put a period here, is this supposed to go with this idea or whatever idea follows it over here? It makes for humorous mistakes sometimes. Other fragment types that I told you about on the checklist, I think, if you start a sentence with especially, you most probably have a fragment, an afterthought, you know, so people in India like to wear this type of clothing, period, especially during the summer. That would not be a sentence. Begin a sentence with because or although, there's a good chance you might have a fragment. Because and there are a whole bunch of those kinds of words, but I'm just going to focus on because and although because they're most common. Just kind of get it inside of your grammatical psyche or whatever. Because and although. I used when a second ago. Whereas, those are all those kinds of words. They're called subordinate conjunction. You don't have to know all that. Especially if you start a sentence with such as, probably going to have a fragment. So those are some tactics that, you know, if you just know a few things that are common that people do in writing, you can be on the lookout. And then the other one I told you about is who, which, and that. If you start a sentence with who or which, there's a chance that you have a fragment unless you end it with a question mark. A sentence with a who or a which and you don't end it with a question mark, it's probably a fragment. It needs to go with the previous sentence. That would be the same thing, except it's not a question. If you start a sentence with that and you don't follow it, you don't have a reference, that what, you know, that dog or that something, then you probably have that afterthought fragment. Okay, and now I'll go back to the subject verb. All right, so obviously you all are, you know, educated young folks. And so if I said we is coming over later, then you would hear that that's wrong. Or he am my friend, you hear that's wrong. I'm using to be by the way, because it's to be. To be is am, is, are, was, were, been, be, being, right? It's the most common verb in pretty much all languages. The idea of existence, of showing something's existence. He is my friend. I am hungry. You are ugly, whatever. I just use it's same rules apply. But the problem is we don't, you know, once we become reasonably educated and smart enough, we can hear those simple errors, but it's when the sentences get long and confusing that basically when we get away from our subject, our doer, there's a bunch of stuff in between our doer and our doing, the verb, then we get confused in our minds because we hear something in our heads that sounds right. And when we type that, it's just a reflection of what we're hearing, but it's technically wrong. I go back up here. This is an example. A study for Donald Redman and Robert Lim of the University of Toronto. Well, this is taken from somebody's paper in the past. A study for, and you get all this stuff. The study is my subject, right? So you get all this with their prepositional phrases. So be one to look at for Donald Redmond and Robert Lim of the University of Toronto. And we're way away from study. And the last thing we hear is Toronto, or we might still be hearing this. And so if we hear that as our subject, then show doesn't seem wrong. But a study is this actual subject. So a study moves. If you're interested, the basic rule for subject-verb agreement in present tense, for the most part, in present tense, things that are happening now or continue to happen, is an S or ES goes on the verb when the subject is singular. Now it's weird because we think of singular and plural, plural being the thing that goes with S's, you know, like dogs and cats and not trees and whatever. But it's not really the opposite because it's not directly related. But when your subject is singular, your verb has an S or an ES. Comprenez-vous? I'm just telling you the why of some of these things. So that's subject-verb agreement. And the thing, the main thing, the main tactic for that, and I've told all my classes, you know, and especially when people ask, how do I avoid these kinds of errors? Well, if you read your subject, I mean, if your subject matter, if you read your paper out of order, where it's not flowing, like so you just grab sentences here and there, you'll be able to hear the bumps in the road a little bit better. I know I'm mixing my metaphors there. Anyway, the example here that I found is straightforward. These recipes is good. Another one in here. Trying to show that cellular phones poses a risk. See, that doesn't even sound wrong to me, although it is. I mean, I could hear somebody saying the cellular, because it's something we call elision. That's when you leave stuff out that's actually there. So I'm hearing this as showing that using cellular phones poses a risk to drivers, right? That's not how it was written here, but in that case, it would be. Using is a verb, but it's acting as a noun. It's a doing. It's a thing that's being done. So you have to be careful. In this case, you know, the rule applies. It's plural, so no S or ES. I'm not gonna enough to know. And then some of the other errors. Verb form agreement is it wasn't on this list that I found from, I don't know, yourdictionary.com. What is a verb form agreement? Well, I have went to Prairie View for 2 semesters. Went is wrong. That's a verb form. It should be I have what? Anybody know?
Been.
Well, gone is been is another good one, but it's a different verb. She has been my friend for decades. So that's verb forms have a lot to do with what we call the third column. It's the participle words. You don't have to know all that, but like, so I swim, you swim, they swim. I swam, you swam, they swam. I have swum. Now I'm saying that one because we don't generally say that, but that's technically the third column word. So if I was to tell you drink, drank, drunk, it's that third column word, drunk. Ring, rang, rung. Rung is the third column word. So I have Bob has rang the doorbell 10 times. No, Bob has rung the doorbell. That's a verb form agreement problem. It's mostly those third column words. And I'm giving you all what's what are called either strong verbs or what's the other word for them? Strong verbs or regular. No, irregular. I'm sorry. If they're irregular, they're considered strong because they don't follow the rules. But if you wrote, my mother has baked a cake, this would be considered a verb form error. It might just be a typo, right? But technically it's a verb form error. That's a regular verb because it follows the rules, adds a D or an ED. What verb form errors are. So if I said ring, ring, rung, sing, sang, sung, bring, and if you thought in your mind brang, brung, you have verb form problems. Bring, brought, brought. It's an irregular verb. It wants to follow its own rules. So, and think, thank, thunk. No such thing as thank and bunk, right? Well, there is such thing as thank, but it's a different word altogether. That's what verb form rules are. So if anybody ever circles a word and says VF, that's what they mean, verb form. Pronoun disagreements are not technically one of the major errors, but it's close. It's sort of 4.5. These, most teachers don't pay that much attention to this use here because so many people do it. We use they as this generic non-sexed identifier. So if we don't know whether it's male or female, we always want to put they. Like somebody left their books on my desk, right? We don't know. Technically, it would be a he or a she, so we would say his or her. But recently, this has been more and more accepted when we don't know the sex of the doer. But in this case, they're showing every girl must, so now we know it's a her. Nowadays, that's not necessarily true. Every girl might identify as a different gender. So you just have to be mindful of that. We do this all the time in speech. Sometimes we use they when there is nobody. They who. If I said, I went to Walmart and they were out of toilet paper. They who? There is no they because pronouns reference something, but it's something we do all the time in speech. I'm just pointing it out. The thing that you do want to avoid is me and him have many disagreements. This suggests that you are illiterate. Like, you're from the backwoods of Kentucky or something. May not be true. It just may be a speech pattern thing. And you might have a PhD and you could still talk like this, right? But it's not good form in academic writing. The flip side of that is what we call hypercorrection. And you'll say, between you and I, men is ugly. Hey, who said that? So this is the flip side because this is a preposition. A preposition is always followed by an object. And I is not an object. I is a doer. So it should technically be between you and me. But because we all taught when we were in first grade, the opposite of this, he and I, you get this idea that I is always correct, but I is not correct. So he got a letter from you and I. No, he got a letter from you and me because of the from. The rest of these, you can look over yourself, apostrophe use, that's a common small error. Misplaced modifiers can be um, I don't think of a good word. It can make something funny, like walking down the street, the police car almost hit me. Now, that means the police car was walking down the street. Now, I've seen a lot of police cars, but I've never seen any with legs and feet. But that modifier at the beginning, walking down the street, needs to connect immediately to whoever was doing the walking down the street. So it makes for comical effect. Their example here at 8 years old, my father. Your father was 8 years old when he gave you a pony. How old was he when he conceived you? You know, when I was 8 years. This is fragments thing again. I copied and pasted from, and the rest of these are kind of silly. This is almost not even paid attention to much anymore. And then the only one that you might want to be careful of is even in speech, when you say things like, hey, where is my hat at? The at is excessive. It's a preposition that doesn't need to be there. Where's my hat, right? Where are you going at? Where is he at? That at is an excess. It has no meaning. Some reason we put it there. Commonly confused words. This is probably the one that you guys would probably do more than any others. There. The other there is not usually mistaken. It's these two. Similar words. This is in plural. That relates to apostrophes. Yeah, well and good. Funny thing about well and good is it gets so confusing because, how are you doing? Well, I'm good. No, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing well. You see, you are good, but you're doing well. Well goes with an adverb for the verb doing. I do this one all the time in speech. Somebody says, hey, what's up? How you doing? I'm good. I didn't ask you how are you? I said, how are you doing? I know I'm doing well in math is their example. So that's the end of my grammar reminders. If we looked at this, like the first, well, we already pointed out this one, but anybody see anything wrong in this sentence here? Now it becomes a proofreading exercise, basically. And most of the time, students can easily identify other people's errors, but miss their own. Anybody want to tackle this? One of many, so it should be plural here. And this is one of those phrases like the example for fragments when we were talking about it, it said as a result. Well, this in fact is another one of those, and the only problem is comma after it. In fact, people who talk by the phone while driving talk by the phone. I don't know. Times more likely to, there's so much going on wrong here that anybody want to tackle that one? I don't know if you're shy or you're missing it. People talk by the phone while driving. A-R-E, it would be one of those commonly mistaken words. For, F-O-U-R, 4 times more likely to have an automobile accident than those not whom. This is one of those hypercorrection things. Let me think what it is. You guys paying attention? Because I get this a lot from students. Will say, I was late submitting my paper. May you open it for me? You know, the link or whatever. May is asking permission. What you mean is, will you open it for me? Or can you open it for me? But may ask for permission. So you're not asking me if I have permission to open it. That has nothing to do with this. It's just another commonly mistaken word. Whom is an object. You should probably, if you ever use whom, just stop altogether using whom, because nobody cares about it anymore. And here's an example of that fragment stuff I was telling you about. Starting a sentence with who, and it doesn't end in a question mark, so it's got to be a fragment. It really wants to attach itself to these drivers. Study 69, 199 drivers who were in an automobile accident. There's a lot wrong with that. And here's a there error. And wasn't common, but there it is anyway. 699 drivers is plural. Who were is still plural in an automobile accident. That means they were all in the same automobile accident. It must have been a giant bus. It should be in automobile accidents while they're using their wrong word. Okay, subject verb agreement problem. Instead, that's another one of those kind of words, like in fact, so we'd put a comma after it, right? Watch the little blue line go away. The cause of accidents, the cause is my verb. Accidents is that thing that, of that preposition that comes right before my verb. So it might confuse me, but the cause was. There's that as a result. Example, watch the little blue line go away. See? The driver's loss constant. This is we didn't really go over that rule, but it's not possessive, it's plural, so it should just be that. And loss should be what? Lost, past tense of lose. I don't know what apostrophe. Here's my especially example. Yay! Starting a sentence with especially, that's going to be a fragment. And this is not a word. It is a common word that I see, but I mean, it's common usage. That's a spelling error. Good and cautious driving requires. Driving is my noun. It's a verb form, but it's acting like a noun. Yes, there. All right. So there's our little proofreading exercise from somebody in the past, or person being used now by me. Uh-oh, I went through all of that. Nobody pointed out that there was nothing on screen. You are some people, I tell you. I tell you, me. Nobody was even paying attention. But anyway, I'm going to share it with you now. This document here is, I'll have it, if it's not already there, I'll post it for you. And you can learn all about the grammar errors of universe. Why does it not keep sharing? Bad. All right. What's up, Gumbo? What are you whining about? And tell the class hello. Wait. Yeah. Go. Tell them hello over here. Say hello. Get out. Let's see who there. Layla? Kylie?
I'm here.
Taylor?
I'm here.
Shanti? Blake? Blake?
Did you say my name, sir?
Yes. Blake? Blake. Here. Okay. Alex?
I'm here.
Oh. Where am I now? RT?
Here.
You could be Raylan Thomas. And who am I missing? Rhea
Here.
Tutson or Tutson? How do you say your last name?
It's Hudson.
Tutson. All right. Look for a link that I'm going to post for a reading for us to discuss on Tuesday. That's what we're doing on Tuesday. I'm not sure what it's called. That's what we'll be doing. Everybody have a good day. Wait, I got some chats here. What's this about? What kind of dog do you have? He's a mutt. Gumbo, the one that was jumping on me. He was my daughter found him, rescued him.
Oh man, all I know is mutts are the best kind of dogs.
He's a good dog, yeah.
Less problems than purebreds.
Yeah. The other one, she's part like pit bull and some kind of husky. I don't know.
Oh wow, that's a nice combo right there.
All right, everybody have a good day.
You too, sir.